Thomas Reyes stood at the microphone and said something that stopped Jonathan Vale cold. I haven't heard silence in 11 years. Not once. Until right now. Jonathan set down his pen. His hand went to his mouth. For the first time in 15 seasons, the judge everyone called unshakable could not stop his eyes from filling. No warning. No build-up. Just a blind man, a microphone, and 11 words that stopped the room cold. Rewind an hour. Just another Thursday night taping. The Meridian Theater packed with 3,000 people. Cameras rolling. Millions watching from home. Another hopeful act waiting in the wings. Another audition. Another nervous hopeful. Another chance for nothing to happen at all. Jonathan Vale sat where he always sat. Black shirt. Arms crossed. That same flat, unimpressed stare he'd worn for 15 years. Beside him, Renata Cowell flipped through her notes. Diane Foster sipped her water. Elias Grant checked his watch. It was late. The good ones usually came earlier. Another audition. Another hopeful stranger. Another chance for the night to end just like every other one had. Then a man walked out, cane sweeping gently in front of him. A stagehand guided him a few steps. He waved off the help. He wore an old service jacket, patches faded, a folded flag pin on the collar. Dark glasses. A calm, steady face that had clearly learned patience the hard way. His boots were polished to a shine that took real effort for someone who couldn't check his work in a mirror. Marcus Bell met him center stage. "What's your name, sir?" "Thomas Reyes." "Folks call me Tommy." "How old are you, Tommy?" 58. A small smile. Feels older some days. "What are you going to sing for us tonight?" "A song a friend of mine used to hum. No music. Just me." He tapped his ear. "Music's tricky for me these days. I'll explain, if you let me." Marcus nodded. "We've got time. I was blinded overseas, 11 years ago. Eyed, side of the road, wrong place at the wrong second." He said it plainly. The way people say things they've had a long time to get used to. "Took my sight. Took something else too. Ringing. Constant. Every hour, every day, since the blast. Doctors call it tinnitus. I call it the noise that never left." "Does it ever get quieter?" Marcus asked. "No, not once. Not during storms. Not during sleep. Not during the quietest room you can imagine. It's always there. Humming underneath everything else, like a radio stuck between two stations." Renata Cowell leaned forward, gentle. "How do you live with something like that?" "You don't fight it," Tommy said. "You learn to live around it. Same as anything else that doesn't go away." The audience went quiet, listening hard. "Who are you singing for tonight, Tommy?" Marcus asked gently. "For the man who pushed me out of the way." Tommy's jaw tightened. He didn't make it. I did. I've spent 11 years trying to figure out what to do with that. The room went still. Diane Foster's pen stopped moving. "What was his name?" Marcus asked. "Michael. Michael Vale." Jonathan Vale's whole body went rigid. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. Silence. Then more silence. Then the sound of 3,000 people forgetting to breathe. Jonathan stood up. Fully this time. He walked to the edge of the stage, something he never did, and his voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Michael Vale was my brother." Renata Cowell's hand flew to her mouth. Elias Grant went completely silent, forgetting even to breathe. Tommy's dark glasses turned toward the sound of his voice. "Your brother saved my life. I've been trying to find a way to say thank you for 11 years. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 11 years earlier." Michael Vale was 3 years older than Jonathan, loud where Jonathan was quiet, reckless where Jonathan was careful. Growing up, Michael was the one who dared Jonathan to jump off the highest rock at the quarry, then caught him halfway down when his nerve failed. He never let anyone else pick on his little brother. Not once. Not even the time it cost him a black eye and 2 weeks of detention. When Jonathan chose music, chasing something uncertain and unglamorous, Michael was the loudest voice cheering him on. When Michael chose the military 2 years later, Jonathan didn't understand it. Not fully. Not until much later. They wrote letters. Actual paper letters. Because Michael said emails felt too easy to ignore. Michael's letters were full of bad jokes and worse spelling. Long paragraphs about the men in his unit, especially one soldier he mentioned more than the rest. A quiet, sharp-eyed kid from a small town who reminded Michael of Jonathan. Reyes, he called him, said the kid could outshoot anyone in the company and still couldn't cook an egg to save his life. Jonathan used to laugh reading those parts out loud to his mother over the phone. He kept every letter, still does, in a shoebox that's moved apartments 4 times without ever getting thrown out. Then came the message every military family dreads. An ambush. A roadside device. Michael saw it a half-second before it detonated and shoved the nearest man out of the blast radius. That man was Reyes. Michael didn't make it out of the radius himself. The military report used careful, clinical language. Words like sustained fatal injuries that Jonathan read over and over, trying to make them mean something different every time. Jonathan flew home from a tour date to bury his brother. He barely remembers the funeral. Faces blurred together. Voices sounded far away, like listening through water. He remembers standing at the grave and thinking about a name Michael had written more than any other in his letters. Reyes. It took Jonathan almost a year to track him down through military channels. Careful, respectful, patient channels that don't move quickly for good reason. Paperwork, waiting periods. Privacy laws designed to protect people who'd already lost enough. When he finally found him, Tommy was in a veterans hospital, blind, deep in recovery, barely speaking to anyone. The nurses said he flinched at loud noises and went rigid during any silence longer than a few seconds, caught somewhere between 2 kinds of pain. He'd stopped eating regular meals, stopped taking calls from his mother most days. The staff worried, quietly, about how far down he might still sink. Jonathan didn't introduce himself as Michael's brother. He wasn't ready, and he suspected Tommy wasn't either. Instead, he quietly funded things. Better hearing aids calibrated for the tinnitus, a properly trained service dog, the waiting list cut through with an anonymous donation to the training program. Extra sessions with specialists most veterans never get access to. A ramp built onto his mother's porch once Tommy moved back home with her. All of it routed through a veteran's charity, no name attached, the same condition every time. "This isn't for my image," he told the charity director once, when she gently suggested a photo might help fundraising. "This is for my brother. Leave it alone." Every few months, a report came back. Progress notes. Tommy's slowly, painfully learning to navigate a world gone dark and loud at the same time. Jonathan kept every single one in a drawer in his office and never showed them to anyone. He read them late at night, usually, after shows, after interviews, after being the man 3 networks needed him to be all day. Alone, with the door closed, he'd read a paragraph about a stranger learning to cross a street by sound alone, and something in his chest would tighten every time. One report mentioned Tommy had finally started sleeping through the night. Most nights, for the first time since coming home. Jonathan read that one twice before locking the drawer. He never visited. He told himself it was because Tommy needed space, not a stranger's grief added to his own. The truth was simpler and harder to admit. He wasn't ready to hear, firsthand, exactly how his brother died. 11 years passed. The reports kept coming. And a broken man, slowly, learned to carry a life he never asked for. He learned to read Braille well enough to hold a job. He learned his mother's kitchen by touch and count. He learned, eventually, to laugh again in small pieces on good days. Jonathan thought that was the most he could offer. A quiet kindness nobody would ever trace back to him, exactly the way he wanted it. Until tonight, because standing in front of him now was the man his brother died saving. And he was about to sing, in a room full of strangers, the truth he'd been carrying alone for 11 years. Some deaths don't disappear just because you never speak of them. They wait. Jonathan walked closer until he was standing right beside him. The hearing aids, the dog, all of it. That was me. Tommy went very still. I always wondered who. His voice cracked. I used to lie awake wondering if it was Michael's family. I was too scared to ask, in case the answer made it worse somehow. It never would have, Jonathan said. You didn't take anything from us. He gave it. That was always his choice, not a debt you owe. Tommy reached out, hand-searching briefly until it found Jonathan's shoulder. He talked about you all the time, you know. Said his little brother was going to be somebody someday. I used to think he was exaggerating. A small, broken laugh. Guess he wasn't. Jonathan Vale was the man 3 networks had built an entire brand around. The judge who never cried, who never softened, who never let anyone see a crack. He put both hands over his face. And wept in front of 3,000 people and a live camera. Renata Cowell was crying. Diane Foster was crying. Even Elias Grant, arms usually folded tight across his chest, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Jonathan pulled Tommy into a careful hug, the old service jacket rough against his hands. The audience rose to their feet as one, the sound of the applause rolling like thunder through the theater. Every single person standing. Every single one. If a story like this one moved you, share it and subscribe so you never miss the next. Then Tommy asked for quiet. Real quiet. No music, no accompaniment, just 3,000 people holding their breath together. And in that hush, something happened that hadn't happened once in 11 years. The ringing was still there. It never fully leaves. But for the first time since the blast, it wasn't the loudest thing in the room. That's silence, Tommy said, voice shaking. That's what it sounds like. I forgot. He tilted his head, listening, the way sighted people never quite learned how to. Then he sang, a cappella, the song Michael used to hum on their long drives between bases, the one from all those letters. His voice was steady where it mattered, and cracked where it didn't. By the final note, there wasn't a dry eye left in the building. Jonathan Vale reached under the desk and pressed the crystal button without saying a single word. He didn't need to. 6 months later, Jonathan started a program in Michael Vale's name. It funds advanced tinnitus therapy and service dogs for veterans who came home carrying sounds nobody else can hear. He visits Tommy twice a year now, not through a charity director, but in person. And they've started a tradition neither of them planned. Every anniversary of the blast, they sit together in complete silence for 1 full minute, on purpose, just to prove it can still be found. Tommy keeps a photo on his mantle now, one Jonathan gave him. Michael, grinning, mid-joke, the day before deployment. He runs his fingers over the frame sometimes, though he's never seen the picture and never will. His service dog sleeps at the foot of that mantle every night, trained to nudge him awake if the silence, real silence, ever startles him too much. It's happened only twice. Both times, Tommy just laughed. Some sounds never go away, but every so often, if enough people hold still together, you can hear something underneath them. Call it silence. call it grace. Some veterans wait 11 years just to hear it once.